On the night the city wrapped itself in Christmas lights and soft snowfall, Clara sat alone at a candlelit table meant for two, the kind of table that promised beginnings but tonight felt like an ending, because the chair across from her had remained empty long enough for hope to turn heavy in her chest. She had arrived early, smoothed the emerald green dress she'd almost convinced herself not to wear, rehearsed polite laughter in her mind, and told herself this blind date, arranged by a well-meaning friend who swore, "He's different, Clara, he's kind," was her chance to stop feeling invisible after a year of quiet losses, a year where her long-term relationship ended with a text, her promotion dissolved into budget cuts, and her mother's house felt too quiet after her father passed. So when the waiter checked in for the third time and offered sympathetic smiles disguised as professionalism, Clara nodded and said she'd wait a little longer, because waiting had become her unwanted talent. Finally, the message arrived, brief and sharp as cold air. "Sorry, something came up. Let's do this another time," and Clara read it twice, the words blurring as if the fairy lights had slipped into her eyes, and she didn't cry at first, because crying felt like giving the night what it wanted, but she did feel the rejection settle in her shoulders, that familiar feeling of being chosen last by life itself, and she stared at the candle until its flame steadied her breathing. She signaled for the bill, determined to leave with dignity, when a small sound interrupted her resolve. A tiny gasp of wonder followed by a soft thump as a little girl climbed onto the chair beside her table without asking, her boots dangling, her red dress trimmed in white fluff, clutching a teddy bear that had seen better days, and before Clara could react, the child smiled with the fearless certainty only children possess and said, "Hi," as if they were already friends, as if this moment had been scheduled long before the date that never happened. Clara glanced around for parents, but the restaurant hummed on, adults lost in conversations and wine glasses, and then the little girl leaned closer, eyes bright, and asked the question that would rearrange Clara's entire life, "Can you be my new mom?" Not as a joke, not with hesitation, but with a hope so pure it startled Clara into laughter that quickly turned into tears she couldn't hold back, and she covered her mouth, embarrassed, apologizing through a smile, telling the child she must be mistaken, that she wasn't anyone's mom. But the little girl shook her head solemnly and said, "You look like you'd be good at it," which was when a shadow fell across the table and a man's voice, low, careful, threaded with surprise, said her name, and Clara looked up to see a stranger who somehow felt familiar, tall, composed, eyes soft with apology, introducing himself as Daniel, the little girl's father, explaining that his daughter, Lily, had a habit of adopting people she liked and that he was terribly sorry for the interruption. But Lily, undeterred, wrapped one arm around Clara's elbow as if to anchor her choice, insisting, "She's sad, Daddy, and moms help when people are sad," and something in Daniel's expression shifted, a crack in the armor of a man used to holding things together alone. Clara learned, between sips of water and tentative smiles, that Daniel had lost his wife 2 years earlier, that Lily had been quiet for months, that tonight was their first attempt at a normal Christmas dinner out, and that Clara's empty chair had caught Lily's attention before her smile did. And as the minutes stretched, the candle burned lower, and the restaurant grew warmer with shared laughter, Clara felt the rejection of earlier loosen its grip, replaced by a strange, gentle sense of being seen, not as a date or an option, but as a presence that mattered. And when Daniel offered to buy her dessert as an apology that sounded more like a hope, Clara surprised herself by saying yes, and they talked, not about grand plans or curated bios, but about favorite holiday movies, the way grief comes in waves, and how sometimes the bravest thing is showing up even when you expect nothing. Lily insisted Clara help her feed the teddy bear imaginary cake, and Daniel watched with an expression that balanced gratitude and fear, as if he were witnessing something fragile he didn't dare name. And when the night ended, snow falling thicker now, Daniel offered to walk Clara to her car, apologizing again for the chaos, and Clara told him the truth, that she had been stood up, that she'd almost left before Lily arrived, and Daniel winced, saying maybe some nights reject us only to redirect us, and Clara felt that sentence settle into her bones. They exchanged numbers without expectations, a promise as light as snowfall, and over the weeks that followed, messages turned into walks, walks into dinners, and dinners into shared traditions. Clara learning that love doesn't announce itself with fireworks but arrives quietly, asking if you're willing to stay, and Lily never stopped calling her my Clara, though sometimes, when she thought no one noticed, she'd test the word mom in the air like a song she was learning by heart. On Christmas Eve, 1 year later, Clara stood in the same restaurant, now brighter with memory, watching Lily place a tiny handmade ornament on the tree, Daniel squeezing Clara's hand as if to confirm what they had built was real, and when Lily looked up and asked again, softer this time, "Can you be my mom?" Clara answered without hesitation, because some questions are invitations you grow into, and as the lights reflected in the windows and the world outside continued its quiet miracles, Clara realized that the night she was rejected had not been a failure but a doorway, and if this story moved you, reminded you that unexpected moments can change everything, then stay with us. Subscribe to the channel for more stories where hope arrives unannounced and love finds you when you least expect it.